Hello everyone and welcome to the Arbor Farm. Thank you for joining me for today's episode where I want to share with you how to dry strawflower. Let's get started. Strawflower can be a popular flower to use in dried arrangements, and it's considered an everlasting flower, and the key is to dry it properly, and today I want to show you just how to do that. Here behind me we have about 100-foot row of strawflower, and it's a relatively easy flower to grow, but it can be somewhat finicky as far as taking care of it and the production of it. So our strawflower was started indoors in February, and that's about, 6 weeks before our last frost in late February. And so we started it and somewhat babied it indoors to get little seedlings that we could plant out after our last frost. Here in zone 6, that's May 15th, and so we planted them out and then we watered them, and finally have some strawflower that we can cut and dry. So how do we what are the keys, in fact, with growing good strawflower? And here's what we've learned this year. The number one thing that we've learned about strawflower is that if you want to have a lot of strawflower to cut, then you're gonna want to trim it when it's about a foot tall. So here is a plant that we did not trim, and you can see it grew a single stem, which now is about 4 feet tall, and it has a single bud at the top. So that's what happens if you don't trim it. If you do trim it back, it will branch. I'm gonna come over here and show you. This is ideal for your strawflower. So this strawflower plant is down here, and you can see that we have cut it off here, and now it has several branches, which each of those branches would ideally have a floweret on the top. So many more flower options when you trim it back and prune it when it's young. If you forget and you end up with a single stalk with a single flower on the top, when you cut that first flower, you just cut it deep, and that will help the plant to branch out like this one did. The second thing that we've learned this year about strawflower and growing it is that you don't want to wait too late to cut your strawflower for drying. If that's your goal, is to dry it, you don't want to wait till it's too late to cut it. And I'll show you in a moment the ideal place or point in its growth to cut it. But here's an example of I waited too late to cut this. This is the flower, and as they dry, they continue to open up. And this one's been drying for about a month. And this flower has basically completely flipped itself inside out. And that's somewhat, in my opinion, ugly now. And I probably will not use this flower. So the ideal place to have them end up is more like this rosy pink one or this orange one, where this has also been drying for about a month and they are still closed and really quite beautiful. They have good color and the flower has not flipped itself, in essence, inside out. So let's go and take a look at what point do I want to cut my strawflower. The strawflower buds will always form at the tip of the plant, and so this one is a good example here. I have some buds forming on the tip of this strawflower plant, and this really is already the ideal stage to cut this strawflower. You can see around the edge it has some petals that have already folded themselves back. So it's already starting to open up. So this would be the ideal stage to cut your flower, when it has 1 or 2 layers of petals that have already opened themselves up. And I would just, even though there are little ones coming here on the side, I'd just cut this whole thing and prepare it to dry. So I even cut it back a ways so that I potentially would get more blooms, and take that in and prepare it to dry. Here is another bloom. It's a little bit earlier as far as the stage that it's at. It has 1 layer of petals open around the base, but it is at the perfect stage for drying and cutting. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this bloom too. Here, look at another set of blooms at the top of this strawflower plant. These are really quite early yet. None of the petals are opening back, and so I'm gonna leave this one and come back and check on it in another day or 2, and it should be ready for me to cut it. Strawflowers come in so many colors and varieties. There are short varieties, tall varieties, big flowered varieties, miniature flowered varieties, and so every single one is great for drying. Strawflower is a top-notch, everlasting flower, and so just the key is to remember to cut deep when you're cutting. And like this flower, make sure the first few petals have pulled back. Don't wait for the flower to fully open before you cut it. So cut nice and deep on every one that you cut, and the plant will continue to branch and produce more flowers. Another thing that you'll want to know about strawflower is that they are a cool flower. So that means that they prefer the cool weather that we have in the spring and in the fall. But they're not winter hardy, so not in zone 6. So they do not last through the winter, which means that they're an annual. We have to plant them and protect them from frost, and then they die at the end of the season at the time of the first hard freeze. Strawflowers also like full sun, and they like to be watered. So they're not like, zinnias where you just plant them and forget about them. They do like to be watered, and they do like full sun. All right, I've gone ahead and cut our strawflower for drying for today, and I'll show you how I go ahead and prepare that. And gonna take 1 stem, and this is how we do it. I'm sure there's more than just the way that we do it that would work well, but this is how we do it. So I don't want to deal with all of these leaves all the way up, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it, and I'm going to strip off the leaves. So I hold it here at the top, and I'm gonna go ahead and strip off these leaves. If you are concerned about breaking your stem and you want to make sure that you maintain that stem, you can use scissors as well. But strawflower, the stem is quite delicate, and you can easily strip most of the leaves off. All right, I'm gonna leave a few at the top just for aesthetics, because I like to have just a few at the top, but I got rid of most of it, so now it's gonna potentially dry more rapidly. So let's do that with our other stems as well. Again, just take the few leaves that are at the bottom and let's get rid of those. If you like the look of leaves and you want to leave them on, pun intended, you can do that. Strawflower is quite sticky when it's freshly cut, so just as a point of interest, or you're going to want to have soap and water readily available when you finish. It makes your hands somewhat sticky. So I have prepared my bunch of straw flower to dry. I've stripped it of its leaves and just left a few at the top, and it's ready to go. I am going to hang my straw flower upside down inside to dry. Now, the key is you need a dark location and a place that's dry, so free of humidity. I'll show you what we do. You could use your basement, you could use a barn if you have one, you could use a garage. We tend to like to put all of our stuff in the basement just because we don't have those other places readily available for storage, but I like to take mine and bunch them all up so that they're about equal as far as the stems are concerned. And then I'm going to use a rubber band and I'm going to wrap my bunch quite tightly. So remember, as flowers dry, they're losing moisture and they're getting smaller in size. So if you don't wrap it pretty tight with a rubber band, you're going to be dropping flowers over time. So wrap it pretty tightly, and then I just take this and I put it up over a wire that I have held up by a couple of nails, and I leave it there for a month or two, and I have dried flowers. So after 3 or 4 weeks, potentially your straw flower will continue to open up slightly. Hopefully you're not going to blow out the end like I did and have ugly results, but hopefully you'll have beautiful results like this flower here. You'll know that your straw flower is completely dry when the stem is dried out. You can also dry straw flower without the stems, meaning you can simply cut the buds off and dry them that way. But I like to use the stem because it allows potentially more uses for my flower. I could use it in an arrangement, in a bouquet. I could use it for crafts and a variety of things. And then as I decide to use it, I can cut it to the length that I want it. So over time, your stem is going to get thinner and like these, and the moisture evaporates. So you go from this to this in about 3 or 4 weeks time, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, depending on the conditions of where you hang them to dry. And do hang them upside down to dry. So I come inside, and here are some of our dried flowers. And these are the flowers that we just cut together. So what I do is I just have a string that's attached to a nail on the wall, and then there's a nail over there on that end, and we just hang our flowers up there to dry upside down. So some people like to grab a paper clip and use the paper clip to attach it to the string, but we are pretty simple around here. So my bundle is tied together at the top. I just take one and separate it out and then add it to my string and leave it there, and it's ready to dry. Dried flowers should always be stored away from direct sunlight and in a dry location for the longest lasting possibility. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Our goal is to always create content that's helpful for you. And if you found today's content helpful, we'd like to ask you to click the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications as to when the next content is available. And as always, if you have questions or comments, please drop those below. We read every single one, and we would be happy to engage with you. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.